At 0:23 on October 6, 2025, twin fireballs tore through the night above Saki airfield in Nova Rivka on Crimea's western shore. This was more than an isolated strike. It marked the opening move of a vast, precisely timed campaign aimed at crippling Russia's southern logistics. Sirens screamed at the Black Sea Fleet Command Center in Sevastopol as radar screens began to populate with dozens of inbound contacts from the west and north. Every blip on those scopes was a problem. An armada of 63 unmanned aerial systems and 3 missile drones had launched from multiple points inside Ukraine. The Crimean IADS commander did not hesitate. "Engage all targets," he ordered. This reaction was exactly what Ukrainian planners had counted on. S-400 batteries, Pantsir S-1 and Tor M1 units spat interceptors into the sky, each missile a rung in a deliberately closing trap. The first wave's backbone was 48 low-cost, high-speed decoy UAVs, mass-produced, simple airframes and modified commercial drones, plus retasked older UJ-22s adapted for one-way missions. Their role was simple and critical: saturate the Russian air defenses, force costly interceptor launches, and crucially, reveal radar positions and reaction timing. As air defense sites around Saki, Kacha, Sevastopol, Simferopol, and Yevpatoria shot these cheap decoys down, every successful intercept became intelligence for Kiev. Each launch exposed a battery's location, engagement frequencies, and time to react. Russian generals began drafting after-action reports convinced they'd beaten back a major raid. In truth, they'd been baited. While the defenders were occupied, the real strike assets crept low and silent through the electronic shadows the decoys produced. Russia's layered network had swallowed the lure and, in doing so, opened corridors for the true attackers. From a clandestine node near Odessa, the Deadliest elements started a roughly 300-kilometer run. 2 heavy Peklo cruise drones and 4 UJ-26 Bober strike drones, each carrying 50-kilon warheads, rolled out, while 4 AQ-400 Scythe platforms launched closer to the Kherson front. The genius of the plan lay in timing. Platforms with varying speed and range were staggered, so they would converge over their objectives within seconds, despite hundreds of kilometers traveled. Bobers at 200 km/h needed nearly 2 hours. Fast Peklos at roughly 700 km/h would arrive in 35 to 40 minutes. Slower assets launched early so their arrival would synchronize with the high-speed missiles, a 4-dimensional attack intended to collapse the enemy's decision cycle. Approaching Crimea's coast, the package skimmed 30-50 meters above the sea to stay below the horizon of long-range radars like the 91N6E Big Bird tied to S-400 systems. At that altitude over water, the curvature of the Earth hides them from many radars. As they closed, a Kasuka 4 EW vehicle began a wide GNSS jamming campaign. Systems like Kasuka can black out GPS and GLONASS across large sectors, lethal for standard guided weapons. But these drones were built for this moment. Their flight computers discarded corrupted satellite fixes and switched to inertial navigation. With ring laser gyros and precise accelerometers, they held course to millimeter precision without GPS. They were blind to satellites, but not to their mission. Under the electromagnetic cloak, the surgical phase began. The plan's initial surgical objective was to sever the rail artery serving the Feodosia oil terminal. 3 AQ-400 SCY UAVs, each with 30-kilon penetrator charges, attacked the Ivazovskaya rail junction, the node where terminal fuel is loaded onto tankers bound for the front. With air defenses distracted, the 3 SCYs slipped low. One struck the administrative and signaling hub, severing command and control. The other 2 destroyed switches and rails. The result was not a conflagration, but a rupture. The rail link between the Feodosia terminal and the southern front was effectively cut. Parallel to the rail strike, a second package targeted an ammunition depot used by the 18th Combined Arms Army, supporting the Kherson and Zaporizhia sectors. This wave, 4 modified UJ-26 Bobers and a Peklo carried concentrated payloads. Bobers with 50 kilo charges and a Peklo with a large 120 kilo warhead. Moving low while the defenders chased decoys, the first Bober punched into the storage yard. Subsequent Bobers and finally the Peklo struck with imaging-aided terminal guidance that matched preloaded satellite imagery to concentrations of munitions. The outcome was catastrophic. Stacks of artillery rounds, Grad rockets, and S-300 missiles detonated in a cascading inferno. The night lit up with a fireball and seismic thumps felt kilometers away. In a single operation, the 18th Army's stockpiles were not merely damaged, they were effectively neutralized. While those strikes unfolded, the operation's main blow closed on Feodosia's maritime oil terminal, the logistical heart of the southern theater. The strike package assembled for the terminal included 10 platforms, 4 AQ-400 scythes, 30 kilograms each, 4 UJ-26 Bobers, 50 kilograms each, and 2 heavy Peklo drones, 120 kg plus warheads. Low-tier point defenses around the terminal, including Pantsir batteries, reacted. One Pantsir locked a Bober and launched a 57 E6 interceptor. The crew assumed success. But the raid's complexity soon introduced chaos. Multiple new low-signature contacts appeared from different bearings almost simultaneously, creating a logic overload. As the Pantsir operator tracked, Bober's onboard passive RWRs detected the lock and fired mini EW pods that blurred the incoming guidance picture. The operator's lock degraded. In the melee, 1 scythe and 2 Bobers were lost to point defenses, but 7 strike assets pressed through and found their aim. The sequence at the terminal was brutal and meticulously timed. An AQ-400 penetrator hit a tank shell to weaken its armor, immediately followed by a scythe and then a Peklo with a 120 kilo warhead striking the same point within a second. The armor's resistance saturated, and the tank became a fireball. Repeating that pattern, another pair of strikes consumed a second tank. Even where a single hit might not have sufficed, the combined blasts and ensuing heat triggered catastrophic secondary fires. The chain reaction ignited a third tank. In total, more than 500 kilon of high explosive struck critical points, producing overwhelming conflagrations. By 0230, flames towered so high they were visible across dozens of kilometers. Satellite thermal imagery later confirmed multiple large fires at the terminal. The blaze forced the evacuation of roughly 250–300 civilians from nearby neighborhoods. Early official accounts attempted to frame the event as an industrial accident, a leak, static discharge, or human error, the standard initial line of denial. But 3 independent confirmation chains shattered that cover story. Hurried MOD bulletins that betrayed panic, international media reporting a major fire in Feodosia, and cold satellite thermal data proving the size and intensity of the conflagration. This was not a technical failure. This was a precision attack. That night, Russia's MOD claimed it shot down more than 40 UAVs, a technically plausible tally. Yet in the asymmetric calculus, the defender must achieve 100% interception to fully negate an attack, while an attacker needs only a single successful strike. Russia could down dozens of cheap drones with million-dollar interceptors and still lose the strategic asset the defenders swore to protect. The physical damage went beyond burning tanks. The operation sent systemic shockwaves through Russia's supply chain. The Feodosia terminal, a major storage and transfer hub with capacity near 250,000 tons, was the artery sustaining frontline fuel and specialized products used both by armored brigades and aviation assets. Without it, diesel for T-90M and T-72B3 formations, TS-1 jet fuel for Ka-52s and Su-25s, and marine fuels enabling Kaliber missile launches were all disrupted. Even a day's outage at Feodosia could blunt a brigade's tempo, limit sorties, and force fleet patrol adjustments. The terminal's dual-use role made the strike doubly painful. Pipelines and tanks also supplied civilian communities across Crimea. The strike therefore worsened a pre-existing fuel crunch. About half the peninsula's gas stations were already dry, and pushed the occupied region into rationing. Vehicles and armor found themselves grounded. Civilians faced long lines, rising prices, and constant alarms. Propaganda of Crimea as an impregnable bastion dissolved under columns of smoke and the indisputable image of a strategic node burning. This raid also demonstrated the economic strain asymmetric attrition imposes. Each Peklo or AQ-400 is expensive to build relative to a cheap quad, but still costs orders of magnitude less than an S-400 interceptor. By trading dozens of inexpensive UAVs for expensive missiles and forcing the defender to exhaust stocks and reallocate batteries inland, the attackers created strategic dilemmas. Either pull assets from forward sectors to guard interior logistics, thereby weakening frontline coverage, or accept further vulnerabilities at depth. Every panzer shifted inland became a new gap on the front. At heart, this operation exemplified modern Ukrainian doctrine: integrate deception, intelligence, and expendable strike platforms to achieve strategic effects. Cheap, purpose-built one-way UAVs are the 21st century equivalent of David's stone. Low-cost, easily produced in numbers, and able to force the enemy to waste highly expensive munitions. The attackers accepted attrition. Expendability was the key design principle because the defender's cost per threat remained economically unsustainable in the long run. Strategically, the operation forced a doctrinal reassessment. Russia's dense Crimean ideas, a layered philosophy harking back to Cold War Soviet concepts, with the S-400 as the linchpin, had been built to stop cruise missiles and high-value aircraft. Yet when confronted with massed, cheap, low-observable systems combined with precise timing and EW masking, the doctrine frays. The S-400s and their supporting layers may detect and engage dozens of decoys, but stopping every threat across the entire battle space proved impossible. The strike underlined an uncomfortable truth. Modern air defense success must be measured differently. A defender's perceived invulnerability is fragile when the attacker can accept high attrition rates. The operation's impact will ripple beyond physical destruction. It forced immediate reassessments of internal logistics, exposed vulnerabilities in supposedly secure assets, and altered civilian life across the peninsula. The psychological shock mattered. A vital hub burning undermined narratives of safety and control and forced Kremlin planners to weigh expensive trade-offs about redeploying interceptors or accepting further strikes. More fundamentally, the raid illustrated how asymmetric investment in unmanned systems and integrated planning can produce strategic outcomes disproportionate to cost. This single night, a blend of decoys, synchronized strikes, GNSS denial resilient guidance, and carefully sequenced munitions will be studied as a case study in modern hybrid operations. It showed how layered deception and relatively inexpensive strike platforms, when married to timed EW and precise intelligence, can sever logistical lifelines and force costly strategic choices on a numerically superior defender. The targets named in this narrative, Saki Air Base, Kacha Air Base, the 18th Army Depot, the railway junction, and Feodosia terminal, are real, and many were reported under attack at the time cited. The account here synthesizes open-source signals, official releases, and satellite imagery analyzed by technical experts. This operation marks a clear evolution in Ukrainian capability, a willingness to fuse low-cost, expendable effects with deep intelligence to strike at the enemy's supporting infrastructure.